Hello, Fighting Irish fans. It's time for the Other Sideline. I'm joined by Damon Dillman, managing editor of CavsCorner.com. That's Virginia's home on the Rivals.com network. Of course, Notre Dame ready to travel to Virginia for a 7:30 kickoff. They'll be on ABC. Damon, I think everyone wants to know, is there any clarity or any idea what's going on with Brennan Armstrong, his injury, and his availability for the game on Saturday?
I think the biggest update that I can provide right now is that he has not been ruled out, which is obviously a significant step forward for him,
Mhm.
given the way it looked in the initial aftermath of that the rib injury, the apparent rib injury at BYU. There was a lot of speculation: would this be it for him? Would this be the end of the season for him? But it sounds like I don't know how much they're being very quiet about how much he is or is not doing in practice this week. We were able to come over and talk to the coordinators after practice this morning, but
Mhm.
usually we're right outside the gate. Today we were on the other side of the building, so we couldn't even see through the fence what was going on inside the gate at practice this morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, but he's definitely not going to play is the best update I can give you. Now, Bronco said on Monday that they'll take it all the way up until a minute or so before kickoff if they have to. They will give him every minute they can to be prepared to play if he's physically able to. Even if that means not practicing at all this week, even if that means standing up on the balcony above the practice field, as he put it, and just watching them all week,
Yeah.
and then magically ready to go, Willis Reed style, on Saturday night. So I don't know. We'll see as the week progresses if more and more stuff maybe starts to get out of practice. They're usually pretty good about keeping stuff in house over there. So I'd be surprised if more than the occasional rumor or morsel of something gets out. But yeah, that's the best answer I have for you right now, is that he has not been ruled out for the game on Saturday night.
For Notre Dame fans who have not had a chance to watch Virginia play, Brennan Armstrong, by the way, second in the nation in passing yards per game, first in total offense. But how would you describe him as a player? Obviously, it stands out that he's a lefty, but what do you think
Right.
really makes him tick?
He's just, well, first of all, he's a tremendous competitor. When you talk to him, you can just tell the kind of competitor he is. He'll go out and throw for 400 yards and he'll be upset about the one interception he threw or the one sack he took in that game. He's always looking for ways to improve. That was a big thing coming into this season. Last year was his first year as the full-time starter. He played 9 of UVA's 10 games, and the numbers were good. Especially for a first-year starter, they were solid to good. Maybe too many interceptions, maybe tried to force the ball into some tight spots when he might have had another guy, if he'd worked through his progressions, been a bit more patient. So there were obviously things to work on coming out of that first season as the starter, and that's exactly what he did. I like to say it's not like he took a step forward. It's like he took a step and a half or 2 steps forward as a quarterback in year 2 as the starter. He's so much more patient, yet at the same time decisive. He's a lot more aware before the ball is snapped of where the defense is lining up and what it looks like they're trying to do, what they're trying to throw at him before the snap. He's not forcing it. He's still prone to maybe the occasional bad throw into coverage or just some of the interceptions he's thrown. You're still kind of shaking your head as to what was he thinking on that one. And he'll be the first to admit, yeah, that was on me. That was not a good throw. But he's his accuracy, whether it's standing still from the pocket or whether it's on the run trying to avoid the rush, he's so much more accurate this year. And those aren't just dink and dunk throws either. Those are throws 15,
Yeah.
20 yards down the field that he's hitting guys right where he needs to, where only they can catch them. And then the other thing too is, as this season has gone on, obviously last year he was a true dual threat. He led the team in rushing yards last year. He got hurt in week 2 this year, hurt his knee against Illinois, and wasn't quite the same from a mobility standpoint for a good stretch of the season. And now these last couple of weeks, if you look at his rushing numbers, 99 yards against Georgia Tech, 94 rushing yards against BYU. That is obviously becoming more of a factor as that knee feels better. And he's becoming more of that true dual threat, which is just one more thing that defenses, have to be concerned about. But yeah, he's just done a tremendous job of building off of what he learned as his first year of the starter last year and just developing even further and becoming a much better quarterback this year. Plus, they've just done a good job of surrounding him with playmakers on this offense, especially in the passing game.
Yeah, speaking of playmakers, you don't pass for that many yards unless you have some kids that can catch the ball and make some plays for you. So as far as the receiver core, and I know you have Virginia has a huge tight end. Who should Notre Dame fans be looking out for in that group?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's funny looking back on it now here in November, but back in August, one of the big storylines offensively for this team was who are going to be the playmakers on this offense? Who's going to catch passes from Brennan Armstrong? Lavelle Davis was a 6'7" freshman last year who emerged out of nowhere seemingly to be a big-time playmaker, but he hurt his knee, tore an ACL in spring, so it looked like they lost their primary option in the passing game in the spring. So, but they've had all kinds of guys emerge. You mentioned Jelani Woods, the tight end, 6'7". And yeah, he's an absolute threat across the middle of the field. He's not just a threat catching the ball, but he's really emerged. He's really proven to be a threat after the catch. Guys bouncing off of him and a threat to break that. He never seems to go down on that first tackle. He always seems to break that first tackle and pick up those extra yards. And sometimes that turns into a touchdown. There's open space once he breaks that first tackle. He's a grad transfer from Oklahoma State. This is his first year here at UVA. He was actually a quarterback at Oklahoma State. It's wild to think about a 6'7" quarterback at Oklahoma State who's now he switched to tight end as a freshman at Oklahoma State. Now he came here just to get more opportunities in the pass game, and he's clearly gotten that. There's another guy, if you look at the depth chart, Keaton Thompson is listed as an FBP on the UVA depth chart. They created a position for him. It stands for football player. He's another guy who he was a 4-star quarterback at Mississippi State. Came here as a grad transfer prior to last season. He was brought in to maybe compete with Armstrong at that quarterback spot prior to last year, hurt his throwing shoulder in camp, couldn't throw anymore. So they decided, all right, well, this guy, he can run with the ball. He can still catch the ball. And they've basically, like I said, created this entire position out of what he can still do. Last year, it was kind of out of necessity. This year, they've had the entire offseason to come up with ways and ideas to get him more involved as that, quote, football player. So he gets a lot of carries as much as UVA runs the ball. But he's a threat catching the ball as well. He's another guy across the field. He's a bigger frame at like 6'4", 6'5". He's another guy who has a tendency to break those tackles and get more of those yards after contact. So Keaton Thompson's another one. And then the other guy who has really emerged this year is Dontavian Wicks, a redshirt sophomore receiver who's on pace to break Herman Moore's records as the best single season for a receiver in UVA football history. He's a guy who they liked him a lot 2 years ago as a true freshman. He was a true freshman and they had guys ahead of him, veteran guys, so they didn't work him in a whole lot. They were able to get him in a couple of games, but still save that red shirt. And then last year, he hurt his foot in the preseason and didn't play at all last year. And now he's healthy again. And obviously you see the numbers. He's closing in on 1,000 yards receiving. He has 9 touchdown catches now. He's a threat. He's broken 70-yard touchdown catches each of the last 2 games against Georgia Tech and BYU. So he's clearly a threat after the catch as well. He can go up and get it. And then they have a couple other guys. Rayshon Henry, Billy Kemp he's a smaller guy. They have a lot of bigger receivers, and Billy Kemp's the smaller guy, but he's the one with the reliable hands who Armstrong looks for a lot of times on third downs, especially third and short. They like him, short passes off the line and seeing what he can do in space. So yeah, like I said, at the beginning of the year, the question was who's going to be the playmaker. Now they don't even miss Lavelle Davis. I think they'd be happy if he were able to come back, the sophomore who got hurt in spring, but they're doing just fine without him. And you almost wonder where they'd fit him into this offense, just given the way they've been able to move the ball around and get all these different guys involved all season long.
I love the Herman Moore shout out because he was at Virginia, late 90s, and he was part of that 90 team that was number 1.
89, 90. Yeah, those were his. Yep, exactly. And they have not had a receiver put up these kinds of numbers since. So yeah, it's been a record-breaking year here for a lot of guys. Brennan Armstrong's already broken some records. Wicks is on pace as well. So it's been really interesting to watch. This is not what we're accustomed to seeing from a UVA offense, that's for sure.
Yeah, and prior to Notre Dame's arrangement with the ACC and these series of games where they've played Virginia a few times over the last 6 years, Notre Dame and Virginia played one another in the 1989 Kickoff Classic in the Meadowlands. That was number 1 Notre Dame against a team in Virginia that was clearly 1 year away from being really good.
Right.
I think they were number 1 for a chunk of the next season.
Exactly. That was the year before the big. Yeah, you're absolutely like with Sean Moore and Herman Moore and a lot of those guys. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Those are great names. My last question for you, it's kind of a long-winded one. Uh, Virginia's in a unique spot because they control their own destiny, right, in the ACC, and they're also coming off a bye week, and then they're playing a team in Notre Dame that doesn't really impact whether or not they control their own destiny. You know what I mean? So what
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
so what do you think is the mindset of the team, as well as I guess just basically what you think they needed to work on during the bye week?
Yeah, I think I'll answer that second part first. I think the big thing they focused on over the bye week was just getting healthy. It's one of those cliches, but getting some rest, getting guys, in the cold tub, being able to recover from these first couple of months of the season. The other thing I think they put a lot of emphasis on, if you look at the statistics, is fixing this defense. If you watch the BYU game, if you watch the Carolina game back in September, this is not what a Bronco Mendenhall coach team is accustomed to doing defensively. They made a shift prior to the season. They've traditionally been a 3-4 base defense. They shifted to more of a 3-3-5 this year. And I think there's been some growing pains throughout the course of the season as it's pertained to that. But 66 points, 734 total yards they gave up in the loss at BYU 2 weekends ago. So that's obviously something that they've tried to. And it's been a problem for them all year. Even in the games that they've played well, it's been such a strange year because they have 2 shutouts. They shut out William and Mary. They shut out Duke. But then they've still struggled in so many of their other games, giving up big plays in particular. And that's in the games that they've been able to limit the big plays, they've won. Mm-hmm. In the games that they haven't been able to, it sounds really simple, but they've lost. So even when Armstrong and the offense has done what they've done. But to your other point, yeah, it's really strange to be talking about the early November, going into mid-November. And before the bye, they played BYU, which was not a conference game.
Yep.
Then they had the bye, and now they obviously have Notre Dame, which is on paper the number 7 team in the country is coming to town. Yeah, that's a huge game on national TV, prime time on ABC. Yeah, that's a huge game. But at the same time, they talk all year long about how goal number 1 for this program is winning the Coastal Division title. And obviously beating Notre Dame would be a tremendous feather in the cap of this program, but that doesn't get you anywhere closer to that Coastal Division title. And as it stands right now, because the week after they play Notre Dame, they go to Pitt. And that's basically UVA controls its destiny. They have Pitt in Heinz Field, and then the week after that, they close here in Charlottesville against Virginia Tech. You go 2-0 in those 2 games, regardless of what happens against Notre Dame, you win the Coastal Division. And they may not admit this, but you get the sense that there's at least a part of the mindset that that's more of the priority. And it'll be interesting to see, as we're bringing things full circle to the beginning of the conversation, if Brennan Armstrong's kind of like, if he's 90%, 95%, 100%, there's no doubt in my mind he's playing on Saturday night. But what if he's like 60%? What if he's 75%? Is it worth risking him in a game that ultimately doesn't mean a whole lot and risking losing him for the rest of the season and those 2 big Coastal Division games to close out the regular season? So yeah, it's a really interesting, unique position that they're in right now. And I do think that that's at least a slight factor in, as this week progresses, whether Brennan Armstrong is going to play on Saturday night or not. But yeah, as we were talking about before we started recording, it'd be a much more entertaining game if Brennan Armstrong's a quarterback and not true freshman Jay Wolfuck starting at quarterback on Saturday night. So, but like I said, we'll have to see how that kind of shakes out as the week unfolds.
I hope he plays. I mean, you referenced earlier, I haven't seen a kid that accurate throwing a deep ball, especially to the far sidelines and to the corners of the end zone. I mean, Brennan Armstrong is something else. He's fun to watch throw the football. So, Damon, I appreciate your time. After everyone hits like on this video and subscribes to our YouTube channel, you get caught up even more on the Virginia Cavaliers at CavsCorner.com, and then also visit blueandgold.com for our preview content for the game on Saturday. Look out for that newsletter. Sign up. A great way to keep up to speed on Notre Dame football. Damon, once again, great insight into the Virginia Cavaliers. I feel caught up on them now. And
I'm glad I did my job.
There you go. Well, I appreciate it, bud. Have a good one and enjoy the game. We'll enjoy the first basketball game tonight against Navy, and then enjoy the game on Saturday.
Thanks, man. Greg, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right, later.